Welcome to this week's Endurance for Everyone podcast.
Hey guys, just Rob here, no John. I had the opportunity to sit down with Trevor and Angie from the Marathon Training Academy podcast. We're going to get to that interview in a second. Just want to let you know that this is my first attempt at trying to do the show completely solo. I recorded it, edited it, and we're putting it out there. So if it's not up to the high quality standards that you're used to, let John know how much we appreciate him with a couple of love letters. Here you go. I'm joined today with Trevor and Angie. They're a married couple. Angie is an accomplished runner who's completed over 50 marathons, Boston qualified, and is working towards her 50-state goal. While Trevor's no slouch, he is a bit more laid back in his running career and takes things a little easier. He likes to show up a little later to starting line and finish lines, but enjoys the journey along the way. Together, Trevor and Angie have started and host the Marathon Training Academy Enterprise, which currently consists of a Facebook group, web page, coaching services, and the glue that holds the whole thing together is their podcast. The MTA podcast is the top show on marathon training and has over 5.7 million, let me let that sink in, million downloads since 2010. As you can see, this couple really knows how to run things. Guys, I want to thank you for joining me today. Is there anything that you guys want to add to that intro?
Hey, it's great to be with you, Rob. It's weird to have your life, like read or explained by someone else. I don't know if I've had that happen too many times.
You did a great job. It's good to be on the show with you today.
Oh, I appreciate the pleasantries, but you guys don't have to say that. You know, you guys are much more accomplished in this arena than I am, so I just glad to have a few minutes of your time. And, I had given you guys the rundown, and our group really doesn't need to know since they know who they are, but I would like to summarize for anyone who's just tuning into the podcast here. You know, the Endurance for Everyone Facebook group and the Endurance for Everyone podcast, it's more about broad strokes. You know, everybody likes something different. Some of our shows are about running, some are biking. We've covered hiking, kayaking. I don't want to say alternative fitness, anything strange that you haven't heard of, but really wanted to get you guys on for your running expertise. I mean, you guys have been doing it a long time, very accomplished, and it's interesting to see a married couple that is so in sync, and you guys have, as my audience knows, and I've told you a couple of shows ago, John and I went through like shows we listened to, and I mentioned yours because I have been listening for a long time, so I know your story and how it's progressed, but wanted to kind of hit a few of those and run through it because you guys have real interesting dynamic, and you guys are kind of diverging a little bit, I think, now, and we'll get there with Angie getting back in and more into running and Trevor going into some obstacle course stuff. So I just want to kind of go through a little bit of what got you guys to where you're at, and let everyone else know that it's okay to be into it with your partner and at times have your own life as well. So which one of you guys got into running first?
That would be me. I started running a little bit when I was in high school, actually. I was just reminiscing with a friend about this. We would, as girls in high school think, we're getting fat, so we need to start running and getting in shape. And I remember running around our small town a little bit, but it was always pretty sporadic. And I was never really into sports. I didn't consider myself to be an athletic person. And so it wasn't until my mid-20s where I really discovered running and, really decided that this was something that I could do even though I didn't really feel like an athletic person. It was a goal that I could pursue that would make me feel good about myself, that would benefit my health. And so I started training for my first marathon. It would have been the fall of 2007, so just about 10 years ago.
Cool. And then, Trevor, you got into it after that?
Yeah, Angie was definitely the inspiration for myself to get into running. I was an active person. I mean, I always enjoyed team sports, but really hated to run. I remember just straight up refusing to run in PE. I think in ninth grade, they made us do a mandatory mile. I grew up in California and went to the public schools, and it was either eighth or ninth grade. They made us do that mile, and I just said, no, like, you don't own me. You can't make me do this. And it's not like I was an out of shape kid. I probably could have ran. I mean, my lungs would have been burning, but I just hated to run that much. And even when I was playing basketball and softball and doing, going on hikes and other active stuff, I just couldn't see running for fun. Just nothing fun about it. And I remember when Angie and I were dating, I tried to go on a couple runs with her just so I could be with her and maybe see her in her yoga pants. But
greatest invention
wait, you guys
ever.
edit this, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, if you want us to, but we usually don't.
No, I'm just kidding. But it was just totally miserable. But after she ran I think her first 2 marathons, I was inspired to become a runner, and I just started with baby steps. She helped design for me a just run walk deal, so I got up to running my first mile. But I started extremely small. I just ran for 1 minute and walked for 3 until that was comfortable. And then I just switched that, ran for 3 minutes and walked for 1 until that was comfortable. Then I got up to a mile. Then finally took the plunge and signed up for my first race, which was a 12K in Washington State. So about 7 miles, and that I thought was pretty hard. And,
yes, always is hard when you're
after
building up.
Definitely.
So
So we always love to have new runners listen to our podcast because I can definitely relate. It feels like it's not that long ago I was going through what they're going through.
And I know you guys have the back catalog. I know I kicked you guys some of the random things I remember, and one of them was Trevor's, was it 26.2 thoughts while running a marathon? You had a whole show that was just you with little snippets, and I thought that was pretty unique. I don't know if that's still searchable and playable, but I always thought that one was funny because the thoughts you had during that race were what everybody seems to go through with it. Now, how far back does your catalog go? And I'm sorry I didn't give you the idea of this one. Because I've been listening to you guys for a long time since. And you may know your show numbers better than I do, obviously, but since Vinnie Tortorich was on your show is as long as I've been listening, and I had missed some at that point, and you guys still had your inside jokes about releasing the Kraken and Trevor, your first marathon and half and so forth, and I have never gone back and listened to the old ones. Are they available? So if people wanted to hear the whole journey, or what would they have to do there?
Well, you got a great memory, first of all. We only keep 50 of the most current shows in the feed.
Okay.
So it goes back to last year. The first year we had Vinnie Tortorich on, and for those that might not have heard of Vinnie, he's the author of the book Fitness Confidential, and he has the Angriest Trainer podcast. Although he's a pleasant guy to talk to, he's not that angry. That was probably 2012 when we had him on, and we really changed a lot of things with our diet. Thanks to reading his book, we started cutting out sugars and grains and becoming fat adapted. All those old shows, old interviews, race recaps, and everything we have in the academy for our paying members.
Okay.
Or we also sell them as like volumes.
Okay.
For like $1 an episode. You have to buy 50 though. So we sell them in seasons on our website. But yeah, we only keep the most current 50 in our feed on iTunes.
Well, with the number of downloads I said earlier that you're getting, that would be a little cost prohibitive for you guys to keep them all live. So we would completely understand that. So kind of back to some of the things I had sent you guys there. How has co-host or hosting your show here and producing it? How has that changed your views on running, or what do you guys get from it?
That's a good question.
I think at first when Trevor proposed the idea of a podcast, I was like, who is going to want to listen to us talk about running? I mean, I didn't really know that many people who were runners at the time. It was always something that I kind of did for myself, for my own self-improvement, for my health. And, we thought, who's really going to listen? So we just kind of, as a leap of faith, put it out there, started talking about running, and really tapped into something that people are very passionate about. There's a very wonderful running community out there, and from doing the show together, we've been able to just meet some amazing people, in person and online. And we get emails and messages on Facebook every single day about how people have changed their life through running and the journey they're on. And I think that's one thing that keeps us so inspired, and it really makes what we're doing worth it, because we know that people out there are just really taking their life to the next level.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised when we started putting out content, just how readily people were following advice and picking up tips and actually taking action. Like the people that I think that are attracted to endurance sports, they're driven people. They're people that like to get things done, and if they have a goal, they go after it, and they want to of course get better and get smarter on how they do things. So yeah, it was always fun to see people following our tips and the tips shared by guests and stuff, and then reporting back, hey, I knocked some time off my marathon, or navigated through this injury, thanks for the help. So just to think that we've had a part in helping people accomplish their goals, it really excites us and keeps us producing the podcast, because it does take a lot of work. I mean, we do edit our show, and people might not know, but like to keep a podcast going for as long as we've kept the MTA podcast, which is like going on 8 years, it almost is like a full-time job. I mean, I probably put like 20 to 30 hours into one episode. Not just me, but Angie and I combined, because we have. I can
run
elaborate
your show.
on that if you want.
Oh, you definitely can. I say you definitely put a little more time or energy. John obviously puts more into it than us. This is the first time I'm trying to do the solo recording, as you guys know and the audience doesn't know, because we're only, 15, 20 minutes into the show, but we're 40 minutes into this because I couldn't get my recording equipment to work. But if you just drop all that editing, I mean, whenever we're done recording, like 45 minutes later, John has ours up on iTunes. So
Wow.
you could gain a lot of time back in your life there. But that is what makes your show great to listen to, and that's why I've been coming back to it now for, like you said, over 5 years that I've been listening, and 7-8 years you've been doing it, because you guys do have great guests and great questions. You do your research, read the books, and when you're talking to people, it does show. So if no one's ever told you that, it is much appreciated from a listener. Me, a listener, to you guys.
Because of Angie's frequent cussing and trash talk, we have to edit so much out to keep it family friendly, Rob. So
yeah, I've been working the mute button like a magician right now for her. So, but
thank you, all the delicate ears out there. Appreciate it.
So I had said earlier about you guys, being together and doing a lot of stuff. One thing I wouldn't mind if you guys would talk a little bit about, maybe just a minute or two, or however much you want. And I don't remember what you called it, Trevor. I'm looking at you here now. Was it Epic Conquest? It was something to do with the name of the trailer when you guys packed up a bunch of kids and you went traveling and racing. I'm very interested. I got a 7-month-old at home here. So I don't know if my wife and I are quite going to jump into that. I would. I don't think she's ready, because she's not as dedicated to the endurance lifestyle as the two of you are. But tell us about it. What was the genesis of that, and where all did you go, and talk about that a bit.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for asking about the Epic Summer Conquest.
First, in our household, everything goes through 3 phases. Usually there's the rejection phase by me, which I say, that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
Living in a camper with 3 kids for 60 days. Yeah.
So, and then, some ideas do make it past that rejection phase into the actual thinking about phase. This one actually made it into the completion phase. So I'll let Trevor
And she had a good time, right, Angie?
Most of the time I had a good time, yes. We all
So-
survived.
It must have been
tell you
great
what, Rob.
editing, because I thought you both had a great time the entire time you were doing it. So
That was where he was editing out the cussing.
She keeps her expectations low when it comes to my schemes, but this time it actually maybe exceeded your low expectation slightly, right? You had a better time than you thought you would have.
I did. I have to admit that, yes.
So I had this vision probably back in 2012 when we drove to Montana to see family, and then out to Washington State to see more family. I thought, how cool would it be to have a camper and not have to haul our stuff in and out of hotel rooms or people's houses, and just take our time, go slow, and just do this for the whole summer. And I didn't have the means back then to make it work. I was still working a job, still very location dependent. So I just had that vision, and I knew it would become a reality if I, started taking action toward that goal. And so sure enough, last year, 2016, we spent 60 days traveling across the American West and Southwest and Northwest, just going slow. Went to the Grand Canyon. We went to Yellowstone National Park. We went to Yosemite. We went to LA, to Disneyland, Huntington Beach. Angie ran a 50K in the Redwoods in California. Went to San Francisco. We drove up Highway 1 on the California coast. We went to Washington State, Montana.
Did a couple marathons there.
Yep.
Went to the Badlands.
Badlands, yeah, Mount Rushmore. And even like traveling, just the little stuff we didn't expect or didn't plan, just interesting little things that we got to see and do, like just being at a restaurant and watching a guy trying to eat a 42-ounce steak in Texas, and just stuff like that. Or maybe it was a 72-ounce.
It was huge, yeah.
Yeah, it was 72-ounce. So whatever you're thinking is a big steak, just double that. That's how big it was. We didn't stay around to see if you finished it. But just running races and trying to give our kids amazing experiences, and also getting out and going on hikes with the kids, because we really want to build up their threshold of what is hard in their minds. Too many kids, they just wimp out and say this is hard or school's hard, and we kind of want to redefine, quote unquote, what's hard for our kids, so that they have what Joe DeSena, the Spartan Race founder, he calls obstacle immunity, where you can just go at it and have the discipline to overcome obstacles without too much pain.
Right.
So that was the Epic Summer Conquest, because we were pulling a Gulfstream Conquest. It was a 25-foot bunkhouse trailer behind our Suburban. And our Suburban's kind of old, but it now has like over 220,000 miles on it. And we actually sold the camper, but we're thinking about doing it again, Rob, because Angie has this 50-state goal to run a marathon in all 50 states, and we got to get Alaska. So we're thinking about driving to Alaska next year.
Well, good luck with that. I can't wait to hear about that. That trip up there. So. And, I wrote down a couple little side notes here while you were going through it, just so I can,
Perfect.
Interject a few random things for you. And that is, you had said about the big steak. Now that you're up here in Pennsylvania, John, I told him this on the other show, my town is we're up in Clearfield. The only two things that we're really known for, one, the largest gun shop in Pennsylvania. So you need something, come on up. But also we have Billy's Burgerland. No, I'm sorry, not Billy's. It's Denny's Beer Barrel Pub. It's actually been on the Travel Channel, and they have burger challenges up here. They have like a 2-pound challenge, a 5-pound, and I want to say a 15-pound challenge. So,
Wow.
and in addition, then you could go to Altoona, Pennsylvania. Just drive straight west from where you're at. It's south of where I'm at. And there's a ice cream chain called Sub-Zero. They make the ice cream right in front of you with liquid nitrogen, and they have a 1-gallon ice cream challenge. So if you can eat the gallon, I don't know, in like an hour, you get like 15% off for life, a T-shirt, your name on the wall, or whatever. So you could feel free to throw the kids in the Suburban and try to tackle both of those in one day. You might explode.
I think we'll put our oldest son on that. He's 13 and
Sure.
pretty much a bottomless pit. And one of his jokes is that his goal is to eat a burger in all 50 states. It's like his endurance goal right now.
So mom runs a marathon, and dad, jumps in and has some fun and records the little world famous race recaps, and the kid eats. I like it. Everyone is pulling their part on what you have going on there. So
It works.
Exactly.
and then I want to get back to Angie's 50 state goal here in a second and talk about that, because that's, as we all start marathons, we all then start like, oh, I'm going to do that, and realize how hard that actually is. But if you guys haven't checked it out yet, something you might want to do over the summer break, or if you have the desire to ride bicycles this much, there is a trail, a rail trail, crushed limestone, that goes from Pittsburgh to D.C. It's called the Gap Trail, Great Allegheny Passage, and it passes through kind of south where you guys are at, obviously, just diagonal. And that would be a neat little trip if you wanted to spend a few days with the kids. But logistically, I don't know how you're going to get your vehicle from one to the other, but a lot of people in our area enjoy that. So if you're looking for something,
a bike trail from Pittsburgh to DC. Mm-hmm. I like that.
350 miles or something. I don't know. Just if you Google, GAP Trail, it'll come up and you can see it, and it gives you all of the stops. When I say stops, all the little towns you go through. And some people try to do it as an endurance event straight through 3 days. Most people take 5 or 6 days to do it. So that's been on my bucket list, but I need to wait till now the child is large enough to go in a car seat, because I was rigging this little system where I was putting his car seat in a pull-behind trailer. At 5 months old, my wife didn't think that was appropriate, so we're going to wait till he's actually old enough to get into the big one. So, but yeah. So, Angie, how many states are you down now, and how many states and how many marathons in are you?
Well, I just completed my 50th marathon in Maine. That was in October, and so that would have been my 39th state completed. So I have doubled up a little bit. In the beginning, I wasn't thinking about 50 states, so I've doubled up a bit. But yeah, getting there.
Now, have you ever doubled up a race or just a state? As in, like, I've done 6 marathons in 4 different states, and this year coming here in 2018 will be the first time I've ever repeated a race. I'm going to go back and do Pittsburgh for a second time.
Yes, I've done the Marine Corps Marathon twice, and that's the only marathon that I've doubled up on. There are ones that I would love to go back and do again, but I'm kind of making myself wait till I complete my 50 states, just so that I can maximize my time and energies, in that direction.
Yeah.
Wait, so hang on. I think you did the New Orleans Rock and Roll Marathon twice.
You're right. Yes. So I doubled up on 2 of them. Yes, I've done New Orleans twice and Marine Corps.
Which ones would you like to go back to?
I would love to do Marine Corps again. That's a very inspiring race. I, of course, would love to do Boston again someday. I would love to do the Wineglass Marathon in Corning, New York again. What else? New Orleans. I like the New Orleans Rock and Roll Marathon just because we love to visit the city. So that would be a fun one to do again.
She wants to do the Tupelo Marathon again.
No, that's you. So there's several that come to mind that I would love to do again.
Cool.
For sure.
Excellent. I've done Marine Corps, and it was painful. I don't know what happened. It just wasn't my day out there. But that was a fantastic, I don't want to say heartwarming, but a very energetic race. It can be just the crowds, the where they run you through. I thought that was a heck of a great course as well. So
a lot of inspiration out on that course for sure.
Yep.
Oh, definitely. Is there any memories that stand out to you guys? And I'll give a brief example from me. Is like I always try to be, I'll say, the funny guy. So I had done New York Marathon, and I was going across the bridge, and there was a girl running with a pair of shoes around her neck. So I'm like, looked at her, and I said, I guess you women do like to have various options, don't you? And then she went into she was running it because she had a friend who was supposed to be running it with her that passed away. So she's running, with that. And then, just using that continuation of that race as an example, seeing the Achilles athletes out there, you know what I mean, running with the little strings so they're being guided. Obviously, they're blind, you know what I mean, as well as coming across the bridge. I'm not sure which one there is into Manhattan. If you haven't done it, dead silent. And then you come into Manhattan, and it is just the most sound, like coming. It feels. I'd have to say, it feels like running out of maybe the tunnel for the Super Bowl. It was just so loud and so energetic. Those are things that are going to stick with me forever. Do you guys have any little one-liner or quick little stories, or just interesting little personal memories or anything like that?
I don't know, Angie. Do we?
I suppose we do. I mean, there's a lot of moments that stand out to me. I mean, I think one of my most special memories was running a marathon with my youngest sister. We did the Marine Corps Marathon together. And it's just able to share a really impactful marathon like that with someone. It was just magnified it for me. And of course, during Marine Corps, there's the Blue Mile, where they have all the pictures of fallen soldiers, and that's incredibly moving. And I just think back to different marathons that I've done where, I've been running beside people who obviously are overcoming a lot of challenges to be out there. Maybe they're running in memory of someone they lost, like you talked about, or, maybe they have some kind of physical challenge they're overcoming. And I just think, wow, I am so fortunate to be able to be out there here with a strong, healthy body and be able to experience this. So I always try to inject a lot of gratitude into every marathon. It doesn't mean that I enjoy every single moment, because there's plenty of moments where I'm not having a good time and it hurts. But I do try to find something in each race to be thankful for and just try to feel a lot of gratitude.
I remember when I did the Marine Corps, seeing some firefighters in like their full gear, uniform, their fireproof gear.
Yes, sir.
And they were out there in honor of a fallen comrade, completing the marathon. And another thing that sticks out in my mind, I just most recently did the Munich marathon in Germany. And you talk about like at the New York City running into like all this ecstatic crowd at the end. That's kind of how it is in Munich. They run you into the Olympic Stadium that they built in 1972 for that year's Olympics. And Frank Shorter, the American, won Olympic gold that year. It was the last time an American has won gold in the marathon at the Olympics. So you go kind of underneath this tunnel and then boom, right into the stadium, and there's music and people are cheering. And that was just one of the most epic marathon finish lines that I've experienced.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and they're saying things in German, so you don't know what they're saying, but you like
so
it anyway.
You're not fluent in German, is what you're saying?
Well, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. I speak a little German. I'm according to Duolingo at this time, I'm 60%. So for whatever that means, I could understand a lot and I could read German, but
well, I'm 0% bilingual, so you're already ahead of me. So one thing I wanted to ask a couple questions about here, and that is, Trevor, you had mentioned earlier, I should say, about the Spartan, or the gentleman with there. I know you've been getting into that, but before I ask you and we talk about your Spartan racing and what's happening with that, I want to look at you over there, Angie, and say, is this something you think you'd ever get into? And myself, I've only ever done one obstacle race, and it was a lot of fun. But I always seem to be in the middle of a training cycle, whether it's for a 70.3 Ironman or whether it's for a marathon, and I'm always afraid of twisting an ankle. And is that something that you would consider doing now, or maybe once you hit your 50 states?
Yeah, well, it's something that it scares me, so I will probably do it because I try to do things that scare me. But I am very injury prone, and I don't consider myself coordinated. So a lot of the obstacles, I don't really have a lot of upper body strength right now, which I am working on. But so I told Trevor I would like to do one with him so he can like hoist my butt over the walls,
It would be hard for Angie to get over the walls, but
yeah.
I'd be afraid. Like I could push her up over the wall, but I wouldn't want her to like splat on the ground on the other side.
It would make a good story, I'm sure.
Some of those walls are pretty high.
Episode.
So it sounds like she might do it, Rob.
I'm open to doing it, and I'm not terribly afraid of injury because I don't know. I've come back from a lot of things, but yeah, I'm definitely open to it. But it scares me, and I'll be totally honest with that. And
she'll just have to do a lot of burpees.
That's it. Yeah, if you can do 1,000 of those, you're okay. You just do it and move on. So
exactly.
So Trevor, tell us a little bit about it. How did you recently get into them, and is this something you're going to continue, or are you going to be going back down the marathon path soon? Here, is she going to guilt you into it?
I really had no interest in doing an obstacle race. I really hate cold water. I'm a big chicken when it comes to plunging into cold water. But we've had Joe DeSena, the founder of the Spartan Race, on our show a couple times. And this last time we had him on, I said, well, tell us what a Spartan race is like for those like myself who've never been to one. And he's like, you've never been to one? What are you doing this weekend?
He first asked us, he's like, what state are you in? We said, Pennsylvania. He's like, this weekend you guys are going. I'm getting you entries. We're like, this
Yeah.
weekend?
So
No
I
pressure.
I went and did the Palmerton Spartan Super, which is the middle distance. There's a sprint, which is about 3 miles, and then there's a Super, which is 8, and then there's the Beast, which is around 13 miles. The Palmerton, Pennsylvania Super, that was harder than the Beast because I just recently finished a Beast in South Carolina. But the Super, like, you're either going up a mountain or down the mountain the whole time. I have never been so sore in my life. And
While competing or afterwards? Both?
afterwards, like the next day, the delayed onset muscle soreness. I mean, I think we actually talked about that on the podcast because we needed a quick tip, and that's what I was dealing with. But one interesting thing about being a marathoner, and I guess it would be the same with being a triathlete, and then doing an obstacle course race, the running is the easy part. Like this Beast, Spartan Beast I just did a couple weeks ago in South Carolina, didn't have mountains to go up and down, so there was a lot of trail running, a lot of flat sections, and I was passing pretty much everybody. And I'm not a fast marathoner, and then you get to the obstacles, and that slows you down. But it's interesting to see how one's endurance is an advantage when you go to do an obstacle race, because a lot of those folks that do obstacle races, like maybe they're CrossFitters and they're really muscular guys and gals, and they're rocking it on the monkey bars and stuff, but the running is what they hate the most. Like, I even saw one guy his t-shirt literally said "running sucks." like they just love the obstacle part and the getting down and dirty in the mud part.
Trevor, you need a shirt that says "Cold water sucks."
Cold water sucks.
We can get one of those made and sent to you.
I don't know if I'd wear it or not. But yeah, I think it's a great challenge. I don't know if I'll keep doing it. I had a goal of finishing 3 in 1 year and earning my Spartan trifecta, which is what I was able to do. And I appreciate the Spartan people hooking it up for us. So
is that something where you get like an extra medal, or what exactly does the trifecta? What do you get with it? Just the pride, the sense of accomplishment deep down inside.
At each race, they give you a third of a medal. So all the pieces now come together and give you magical powers.
That is awesome. By our powers combined, right? Cool.
That's right. You can pay extra money and have like a little plaque that the pieces can go into. If I wanted to pay $25, or I can buy the $100 one too. So yeah, they definitely have it monetized pretty well.
You could always make one. Isn't that something? Is that you guys? Is that one you made a finisher's medal?
Yeah.
That was me. My 50K this summer didn't come with a medal. It was just kind of one of those, very rough and, just show up and run kind of things. And we like to display our medals. So it seems a little bit vain, but I decided that I was going to make my own medal to just have, more of a memory of the event. And I tried to pick something that represented the area that I bought locally and everything. So yeah, that was fun.
So when you don't get a medal, make your own.
When you were talking about it, it made me think, because obviously a lot of us that are into these races are into it for the shirts and the medals and the bling, and so finding something unique, and that's why I think I don't know if you have Pennsylvania or not, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as the best race, but the Erie Marathon, they give a blue glass medal on like a leather lanyard, whatever it is, neck, whatever you hang that medal from. So it was my first marathon. It was definitely one of the most unique medals that I've ever received. But of course, there is something with that, Pittsburgh's medal. It must weigh like 2 pounds. It's just a big, heavy, chunk of iron hanging around your neck. And same with the Marine Corps, the Eagle and the Anchor. It's fairly substantial. Yep. So there's something about being able to have that and hang that on the wall afterwards. So. I was going to ask you.
It's funny how that works, like how runners get so excited about medals, but I guess it's human nature. I think it was Napoleon Bonaparte. He said that great armies of men would march all the way into war and fight and die just for a piece of colored ribbon, to put on their uniform.
Yeah. Well, all the ribbons would start off as white. They could be brown and red by the end. Dirt, mud, and
Exactly.
blood. So, do you guys now living up here in Pennsylvania, have you looked into, or would you guys ever yourself consider doing a Ragnar? There is one in Pennsylvania. Is the reason why I asked that. If you can be guilted into it, I mean, it literally runs right past where you guys live now.
Really? Wow. Yeah, definitely. I would jump into a Ragnar, and that's a relay. And so how far is a Ragnar leg?
The ones I looked at up here in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania one I should say, starts over in Amish country, just a little bit west of you guys, Harrisburg area, and it goes from Harrisburg up to Scranton is the total race. So I don't know how many miles total it is,
Okay.
but some of the short ones I want to say I looked at were like 3-4 miles, and some of the longer ones were maybe 6-7. It's not like the Florida Keys one where you might have the big long stretches of bridge that you have to complete the whole segment. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had talked about that on our show recently because I guess John and he had some folks in the group talking about doing one down in I'm going to say Tennessee area. I could be wrong on that, but I guess it's like a trail one, but it's almost set up like a figure-8 loop. So that way, you have one common campsite and then people just continuously do the loops. But the one here in PA is point to point. So
Okay.
something to consider, I'm not fast, but
Yeah,
give me a ring.
that
I could
sounds
be an
fun.
anchor.
Yeah, we've been invited to do other Ragnar events. It just hasn't really worked out in our schedule at certain points. But yeah, I think it'd be a great experience.
Cool. Through the years, you guys, you have done a lot of racing separately. And Trevor, you had alluded to it earlier that Angie had done some, she gave you a training plan. Early on, did you guys do a lot of racing together, or did that, did you kind of put the kibosh on that when she wouldn't leave you in the porta potty?
We don't really run together because one of us always has to be with the kids
Okay.
because their kids are still young. And besides, if we do marathons, Angie was always running faster than me. My fastest marathon is like a 3:54, and she's run like a 3:35,
Yeah.
3:35. But for some reason, I can run a half marathon faster than her. So we don't have the same pace.
We have gone on runs together before.
Trail runs,
Yeah,
yeah.
trail runs, we'll do that sometimes. And your first race we did do together. I believe I was pregnant. We ran that together. So, but yeah, it just really hasn't worked out with our schedule. And I don't know.
If a husband and wife are going to run together, make sure you guys have communicated a plan well and have a lot of grace to just
you can bring out the worst in couples sometimes.
make sure you have a good marriage.
Well, that's something I was going to ask because my wife and I are very different paces, and I've done marathons, half marathons. When I recently went, when I say recently, I've done the New York City half, and that's where I set my PR. And my wife, that was the only half marathon she does the following year. So I trained with her every step of the way, and then I ran that race with her. And as you know, and most of them in our group, there comes a point in the race where you don't want anyone around. And that was probably mile 8, 9 for her, and she was frustrated and wasn't going the way she had planned. And then at that point, she's yelling at me, just go on without me. Just finish the race and do the best you can. And like, I don't want to sound negative, like, hey, listen, if you want me to do the best I can, that had to start 9 miles ago. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna suddenly go from a 13-minute mile to a 6. So
That ship has sailed.
yeah, that's done. I'm in this with you. So yeah, I didn't know if you had any tips with that, but you guys, I mean, I should say, once again as a listener to your show, I know Angie, you had said you talked about going up to Maine. Trevor, you went to Germany. I was curious why the divergence and the kids. Yeah, I guess that would be a pretty good thing. You're not just gonna like leave them home like I do my dogs sometimes. So
Yeah, we're looking forward to the days when they're a little bit older and more independent. Our oldest son is 13, and he doesn't have a lot of grace with his younger brothers at this point. So we're afraid to leave him to babysit. There might be a lot of bloodshed.
They
by
probably
the time
wouldn't
we got
listen to
back.
him.
So
when I grew up,
at
my
the age they have a lot of activities, soccer practice and swim team, and there's just a lot to their schedule. So we have to kind of divide and conquer the races that we want to do at this point in our life,
yeah.
for the most part.
I would recommend light furniture for you. And I say that because I had an older brother, and when my parents would leave him to babysit, if we got out of line, meaning he had to watch us at all, he would put us in the dining room chairs, which is this really big old heavy stuff. I'm talking like the arms are that 4-inch thick stuff. He would put us in the chair and just push it so our legs were against the wall. So we couldn't move the chair. You're too young, too light. So if you have light furniture, that would help. That goes a long way. So of course, then you stack it and build forts, which is fine if you're around, but if you're not, you might want to watch that as well. So
those are all the scenarios we're trying to avoid. Yeah.
yeah, I was the youngest of three boys. So yeah, if you
glad you survived.
Yeah, it's a lot of scars to prove it. So it's all good. Anything we haven't gone over, you guys want to, you know what I mean? This call, I apologize for the 2 things. I knew we could hear the construction going on the other side of my wall, but also, we had the technical difficulties there. But any things you guys want to interject or cover? Like what's coming for you guys? Like what's going on and what's new? Go.
Well, my next race is going to be the Rehoboth Beach Marathon in Delaware. That's on December 2nd. So hopefully the whole family can go up. Trevor won't be able to run because, of course, the kids again. But we're looking forward to going up there. And we're still planning our 2018 race calendar. We don't have things totally nailed down with that. But I'm sure it'll include a couple new states for me and maybe a trip to Alaska for the whole family.
I can't wait to hear about that Alaska trip.
Oh, it's going to be epic. We'll
Part
have to
2?
like Epic Summer Conquest 2 coming at you live.
2.0.
Yeah, I'm just excited. It's a great time to be a runner. There's so many amazing events going on, and the running community is just so welcoming to new people coming into the sport. Shalane Flanagan just won the New York City Marathon after a 40-year drought for American wins. Just a really exciting time, and I'm looking forward to running more races myself. I usually do about 2 marathons a year, but I think I just need to challenge myself a little more and put some more races on the calendar or greater distances. And it's also exciting to see our kids, kind of follow in our footsteps, and we try to provide a good example. And they just did a 5K with Angie a couple weekends ago, and our middle son is doing a running program through his school, so he's building up his endurance. And the way it works, and this is maybe something we could talk about for a minute here, is with trying to get our kids to be healthy and active. A lot of times they're not too eager to go out on a hike or to go on a bike ride or a run. It's today we have kids growing up, they're on a screen all day, and my kids included. So it's hard to compete. Like nature, I guess, cannot compete with whatever is going on this tiny little screen. So a lot of times they don't want to go, but we will just try to make it fun. And I'll even bribe them if I have to. It's like, hey guys, we're going to go on this hike. We're going to go 5 miles, 4 miles. It might not be fun the whole time, but if you guys do it without complaining, we'll go get some ice cream afterwards. So yeah, I'm not above bribing the kids, because
parenting tips straight from Trevor. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And we took them on a really hard hike like 2 years ago up this mountain in Montana called Square Butte. So our 2 oldest sons went, and it was hard for me to get up that mountain because we were like bushwhacking and there's like no trail. And it was like an all-day thing. I don't know, like we probably did like 10 miles that day. The mosquitoes were horrible. But think if a kid like it goes with a group and there's this group camaraderie and there's this challenge that you're overcoming, man against nature, and you're triumphant in the end. Think now what that does for a kid's self-esteem and building in that obstacle immunity, like what Joe DeSena talks about. Like what's going to be hard now after you've gone through that, as a young guy, young gal.
And I think as parents, it's important to set the example too of fitness. Like they say, if you want your kids to be readers, then you read and set that example. If you want your kids to eat healthier, then you need to set the example. So I think hopefully us setting the example of being healthy and fitness minded will allow them to just realize that's a normal part of life, and it brings so much joy and it adds so much to your life.
Yeah, and it's not like we're forcing them to become runners, because we want to help them grow in whatever's the natural inclination that they have when it comes to sports. And my oldest son just loves to jump on the trampoline and do backflips. So we're going to help him provide a way to do that safer and get better at that. So if our kids don't grow up and become runners, that's fine. As long as they are active and pursuing some sort of healthy thing that they're passionate about, then we'll be happy.
I say, well, you guys are definitely, decent. Sounds like great role models to the kids, and you're obviously great role models to millions of runners out there. So I'm fairly certain you're going to foster a great, future for them in some sort of active lifestyle. So, and that's I'm not saying great place to end. If there's anything else you guys want to, go over, we definitely can. Appreciate you being so gracious and being on here with me for all this time. And anything else you'd like to add? If not, I'll go ahead and close this out here, and we can close it out offline too.
Well, thanks, Rob, for being a longtime listener to the podcast. We appreciate you, and keep up the great work on the show. And tell your co-host as well to keep up the great work. And maybe we'll see you out there at a race one of these days. I'm thinking about jumping into the Pittsburgh Marathon, so maybe I'll see you next year.
I will be towing the line, trying for a PR. Once again, my marathon PR was set there 4:02. I want to go sub 4, so right around there. Awesome. And but I don't take myself too seriously, so I'm just there to have fun and enjoy it. And but that being said, I want to interject and end, if you guys would allow me, and I hope I say it right with the same tone, inflection, and enthusiasm. And that is, hey, I want to thank you guys, for coming on, and just close out and say thanks to Trevor and Angie for being here. And if you haven't listened to their show, their tagline is, "You do have what it takes to run a marathon and change your life." I hope you enjoyed listening to that as much as I did in recording it. Trevor and Angie were very gracious with their time, and I want to thank them once again. You can check them out at marathontrainingacademy.com for their podcast coaching services, and join their group on Facebook. Our group on Facebook is the Endurance for Everyone page, as well as the podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to John or I, and leave us a rating or review wherever you listen to this. Until next week, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you have comments or questions for the show, send an email to teamE4E at enduranceforeveryone.com. And remember, swim calm, bike strong, and run steady.